Hello and welcome. My name is Meepless, they, she, he, and this is Literally Graphic. And today I'm re-reviewing Smile and Sisters by Raina Telgemeier with the addition of her most recent comic memoir, Guts, published by Scholastic's Graphics imprint in 2010, 2014, and 2019, respectively. Content notes for braces, teeth being knocked out, bullying, strained familial relationships, parents fighting, anxiety, IBS, childhood illness, and vomiting. A bit of an extensive list, but this is a series of children's graphic novels where Telgemeier shares stories from her own childhood that take childhood illness, pain, and stress seriously. Looking back to my initial review of Smile from 2016, I said that this was the most all-ages book I had read from Telgemeier so far, and I would say that continues to be true for the series as a whole. As always, since the publication of her first fiction title, Ghosts, I would like to caveat all my positive words for everything else she has written by saying I strongly do not recommend Ghosts. Links in the description to what others have said on the topic of ghosts and the inclusion of The Day of the Dead. Moving along to the creator biography section, Raina Telgemeier is a writer/artist behind many graphic novels for children, including this series, Drama, which I recently re-reviewed, and the first 5 volumes of the Babysitters Club graphic adaptions. And according to her website bio, quote, Raina's accolades include 5 Eisner Awards, a Boston Globe Horn Book Honor, a Stonewall Honor, and many Best of and Notables lists. Raina lives and works in San Francisco, California, end quote. What kinds of keywords came to mind that weren't already in the content notes section? Elementary school, Girl Scouts, coming of age, working class family, therapy, relationships, road trip, pet snake, and food sensitivities. To give a more plot-ish summary of this trilogy, in Smile, we meet Telgemeier in the 6th grade, just about to get rather routine braces to correct an overbite. Following her initial orthodontics appointment, however, Telgemeier trips and knocks out her 2 front teeth. This kicks off a very extensive orthodontic journey that is both unique and highly relatable, I suspect, to anyone who suffered through braces as a child. It may sound like a small thing, but I really appreciate how seriously this book took braces, because panic attacks into my adulthood included feeling like I had braces again. I also struggled with my braces breaking a lot, despite severely restricting my diet as instructed, and I was always blamed by the orthodontist for something that was so mainstream growing up. I do feel like we should talk about the trauma of braces a bit more. The second volume, Sisters, looks to tackle rocky relationships, especially the familial kind. Raina has a hard time getting along with her sister Amara. The story centers around a road trip to see some relatives that their mother doesn't seem to get along with, and their parents also don't seem to be getting along. Although that part felt like it just dropped off at the end. Objectively speaking, I feel like this struggle that I could also relate to is important to validate in child lit, but it still ended up being the weakest volume, in my opinion. The third volume, Guts, circles back in time a bit, but focuses on Raina's stomach trouble due to anxiety, phobias, and IBS. Raina also highlights her time in therapy in this book, and bullying is also a fairly central theme. Like the other 2 volumes, it felt like this book didn't really talk down to its audience, so it does come across as fairly all ages. Reading the books together like this, the chronology of events was not an extreme focus for Telgemeier, so I was left a little confused how everything fit together. Things seem to be presented in slightly different ways and or slightly different orders depending on the book. For me, this isn't a huge deal. The books were obviously each focused on a particular thing, and this is not a book about a series of events. I'm not even sure how many more books about herself Telgemeier has assumed she would be writing each time she returned to writing about herself. The writing for the book was pretty good overall. Again, I think Sisters is a bit weaker than the other 2. Thinking about the style a bit more, I did notice Telgemeier seems to go out of her way to try to generally not label the medical things that make her feel unusual, choosing instead to take readers through how she experienced the things she writes about. This is probably a good thing, but I did sometimes want her to just get to the point and say, I am XYZ. That was definitely a me flaw. Gender obviously plays a role in the series, although I assume I remember correctly, Telgemeier didn't really gender the focuses of these books. There is a sprinkling of girls having crushes on boys, considering Telgemeier did write a low-key kids gay book. I feel like the one-note gender and sexuality is largely true to her life. Race was not a central theme, but Raina seems to have grown up in a pretty racially diverse household and school. If we are bringing her other books in for comparison, though, I do hope she's spent some time since publishing Ghosts thinking about race and culture. Class was another stronger side of the series for me, in that Raina doesn't shy away from the constraints her family faced when it came to money. Telgemeier grows up in an apartment, and there doesn't always feel like there's enough space. Plus, her dad is unemployed for a while. Obviously, one of the reasons I decided to pick up the series again was because of my anti-ableism TBR. I really like how Telgemeier's story does push to normalize different ways in which kids aren't totally able-bodied, and, as I've already said, pushes for taking these, quote, normal pains of so many people's childhoods more seriously. At least that's how I read it. Returning to these books, I did end up moving everything up a star, with Smile and Guts both getting a 4 out of 5 stars, and Sisters getting a 3 out of 5 stars. Bye y'all, keep reading and organize to end capitalist oppression. And as always, Literally Graphic is created on land that should be given back to the traditional landholders, which in this case is, to my knowledge, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation.